Welcome back to another episode of Beneath the Armor. I'm your host, Asante Cleveland, and I'm joined here with Trevor Cody. Trevor, what's up, man? How you doing?
Not much. Excited to be here and looking forward to hearing the story of JP.
Me too. As Trevor has alluded to, we are joined by special guests. We have former Major League catcher and current sports analyst for Bally Sports and Miami native, JP Arencibia. JP, what's up, man? How are you doing?
I'm doing good. Thanks for having me on.
Dude, of course. Thanks for joining.
I'm fired up. Anytime we can talk shop, I love to get into all the things sports and the mental stuff and everything else. I'm in.
Has there been any Miami stories that were shared between you two yet?
No, other than like a little bit of a connection with the strength coach that used to be there and stuff like that, but nothing, no Miami stories yet.
We talked a little about the lore of University of Miami, him growing up in the atmosphere, and then me kind of coming in as an outsider, not really knowing much. But yeah, University of Miami, that whole Miami area is just loaded with talent. And JP, you are another prime example of that.
Yeah, I'm one of the ones that left though. I wanted to get out. I wanted to kind of spread my own wings and fly. So that's why I went to the University of Tennessee. Why I'm wearing my Vols gear today, because we play UF and that's a big game tomorrow. So I'm repping the boys today.
That's awesome. So the reason you had the ability to leave University of the Miami area was because your prowess at baseball. How did you originally get introduced to the game?
You know, it's kind of crazy. And I think that I was just kind of raised with a bat and a baseball. My parents were both born in Cuba, and my grandfather was a very big sports baseball guy. He was a big baseball guy. And so I have pictures of me being, just a newborn with a baseball bat and ball. So I grew up playing baseball, and then I actually played basketball and football all the way through my senior year in high school. So it was one of those things. I just loved sports. I loved baseball. I loved football. I loved basketball, and I played them. And the good thing is this being in a part of the country where the weather's nice, you can play year round, and that's exactly what I did. But that's, that was pretty much it. Is all I knew was sports, and sports.
With all the experiences that you had, getting through the different single A, double A to the majors and then being there, a massive amount of transitions that you constantly had to go through from just shipping up and going from one location to the other. What did you find, or how did you find that experience to be as you were kind of continuing to have to go through multiple transitions during your career?
I think the biggest thing for me was the lack of idle time was actually a good thing. I think the constant moving. I think the transition was easy for me in the younger stages, especially, you play AAU baseball in high school and you travel, and then, you go to college and you're on your own, and that's a big transition, but one that was, work when you're young. It's like, that's cool. And then I think the biggest transition really starts after college, because in college, you're kind of spoon-fed in a sense. You have your strength coach, your dietitian, your person who helps you go to class. Like, you have everything. And then when you get into the pros, it's like, they don't care if you're a first-round pick, a 40th round pick. Now you're a professional, and now you're getting paid to do what you do. And I mean, that was a transition really for me, where it was like, okay, now I don't know anybody. I just flew into Auburn, New York, where I was like, okay, this looks like high school field compared to what I came from. And I have, thankfully, me speaking English and Spanish was huge. Being able to connect with other guys on my team. But you literally come into a clubhouse, and it's like the first day of school in elementary school again, when you're nervous because you're like, who are you? This guy doesn't speak English. This guy's from the DR. This guy's from Venezuela. This guy's from somewhere else in, the country. And that's when you really, I think, the transition starts I thought, like, becoming a little bit more difficult.
That's interesting that you bring that up, because that was one of the questions I had was, how difficult is it to build connections within the clubhouse since there are so many people that speak different languages on every single team? Whereas I assume in college, everyone spoke English, or most of the guys spoke English.
Well, here is even a deeper layer than that, and I'll answer your question as well. But the deeper layer to that is you leave from college, which it's everybody trying to win, and a team pretty much like a legitimately team concept, to then going to pros where it's everybody for themselves trying to make it to the next level and trying to make it to the next level. So that was already a tough enough thing, because it's like I'm catching, there's another catcher there, and he's trying to move up too. And, you know, there's everybody on the team is trying to move up to the next level. So it becomes a really individual ordeal. So right away is where it becomes very cliquey, because it's like, there's only a few people that you really would hang with, because it's not that team environment anymore. I think, the Spanish has always helped me. Being able to speak Spanish has been big, because, I mean, and I'm sure you've seen it in locker rooms, there's still very much, and I don't know if it's not a racial thing. It's just it's like a comfort of, like, the Spanish guys hang out with the Spanish guys, the white guys hang out with the white guys, or English speakers, not necessarily white or black, but, you know, that's the way it kind of flowed. And for me, I was lucky because I was able to have those conversations with both English speakers and Spanish speakers, and relate to the Spanish guys, relate to the American guys. But it was, you know, but the tension between, you know, Latin guys or the non-Spanish speaking, there was tension a lot of the times, because there wasn't a like, hey, we're gonna all come together.
Seems like very disjointed, in which there isn't really this like common goal. We're all together in this common goal. Everyone had their different goals that, you know, didn't allow the team to feel like connected in any way, which I'm wondering, off the field, did that show up in any way to make things more difficult for you or any of your teammates? But then when you leave there, was there a way in which you relied on those teammates, or did you rely on something else to be able to enjoy the time wherever you were?
Yeah, I mean, it becomes, you know, the one or two guys that you became friends with. You know, in college, it's funny, in college, I have a text thread with 20 of my teammates. In professional baseball, I really keep in touch with like 5 guys. And that was through all the years that I've played. And I think that's just because of that. It's like, you know, and what's crazy is you'd think that it'd be the opposite as it gets higher in levels, but it's not. It's actually worse. Like, because when you're in A ball, you're all kind of just grinding, and in double A, and, you know, A ball, double A, triple A. Triple A is a weird spot. I actually hated triple A, but everybody's grinding. And then when you get to the big leagues, and it's like, I'm 24, I'm single, my teammate's 35, he's married with 3 kids. You know, this guy's 28, he's married. This guy's 36, he's divorced. Like, then it becomes really different, like, on a spectrum of actually having people that you can jive with. So, you know, I always was able, I'm a very social person. I'm a person who's always been able to, I'm open unless it becomes, you know, like, unless you cross the line. But I'm very, you know, socially accepted with everybody. I can do anything. Like with the Latin guys, I would, because, you know, I was the first round pick, so they didn't make a lot of money. And so I was like, hey, listen, you guys cook Spanish food, I'll go and buy the food. So, like, try to do those things. But yeah, it's crazy. In baseball, it is very, very much like, as you get higher into the levels, it actually almost goes further away from, it's like literally a 9 to 5. You check in and check out.
It sounds so isolating.
A lot of downtime. Yeah. A lot of, I mean, unless you have, again, your core group of like 2 or 3 guys that you get breakfast with, and then you go to the stadium, I think where baseball does help you is you're there at a 7 o'clock game, you're there at 1. So you're literally around people all the time. And then the games are late and you sleep till, 10. And so it's kind of you don't have a ton of like that downtime other than the morning, but
Gotcha.
yeah, honestly, you kind of have your 2 or 3 guys or less that you are buddies with, and that's just kind of the way it rolls.
Did you have that same feeling in your locker rooms?
On the better teams I was on, it was so tight knit. So I played in New England, and I think one of the biggest reasons why that team in that era was so successful was that people genuinely got along with each other. People genuinely wanted to like help each other. People spent time together outside of practice, away from the facility. And I think that was a big reason for their success, because I'd been on other teams where different units didn't like each other. There was a lot of infighting, and because of that, there was a lot of problems on the field. We didn't win a lot of games. So I wanted to ask you, JP, I know your freshman year of college, you guys made it to the College World Series. Like, what was the camaraderie like for that team, and how was it maybe different from your other teams in college and like leading into the pros?
Oh, that text thread that I have is like of all the guys of that team. And it was like we used to have this thing, and I remember before the season ever started in my freshman year, they had like, I guess it was, I forgot what kind of meeting it was called, but essentially what it was everybody air out anything that you had, leave it all out there, so that whatever is in the closet, the skeletons in the closet are out, and we all kind of know where we stand. Yeah, that team was different. We all hung out together. I remember even as much as like when we went to the World Series, it was like the entire team was just at a bar. I was underage. I wasn't drinking, but we were all there and just hanging out. But it was like that team had like a genuine bond, and that is 100% something that championship team had when I was in college, and I really never got to experience again in my career that of a team that was like truly a good culture, other than Tampa, which I do think we hadn't gone to the playoffs that year, but Tampa, the reason why I think that they're very good for the lack of payroll that they have is because of the culture that they've created, and making that place a fun place to go to, and everybody wanting to kind of pull the same strings.
Yeah, how you guys are talking about each of your experiences is that there seemed to be a greater sense of purpose to showing up every day besides just winning. And there's something to be even more important than the winning that you all were trying to strive to experience, which I guess, what we see very much so in great teams is that it's not just winning, but there's something greater that's pushing us to do it, which is to do it together, to create those relationships and excitement for one another. That obviously would be then a byproduct of that would be to win.
I would also add to that, it's a good management group that communicates, because I think the one thing that people forget is, as pro athletes, they think that that we're not insecure, or that we don't walk around looking over our shoulder. I think that the reason why Tampa was so successful and is so successful is because everybody knows their roles. Like when they come in, they tell you, hey, this is what's expected out of you. This is what we're going to do. So when you walk into the clubhouse every day, you know exactly what you're going into, and you're not kind of like, hey, what's, is this guy playing? Am I playing? Is this, that? So then it takes away all the, really, for a lack of a better word, the BS. And you kind of know, everybody knows where I'm playing today, what I'm doing, what's expected of me. And that's when the best version of people come out. I truly believe when communication is had and you know what's expected of you.
In Tampa, you mentioned that happened. Was that the first place where you were really given those clearly defined roles for yourself? Did that happen in college at all?
No, honestly, that was like the first team that I think collectively everybody kind of knew where they stood. Which was weird, In Texas, I played a year. In Toronto, the 4 seasons that I played there, I knew that I was a starter. I knew that I was going to play every day. But I think it's not based, very much the morale of the team is not based on one person, right? So it's like, I knew my role, but there was a lot of guys in there that it was like, what the heck's going on, or, hey, upset. And it just kind of creates friction throughout the entire room. And not maybe with one another, like going at it, but just a sense of like upset about their role and what's going on because they're not being spoken to. And so I think it's more, for me, it was a lot of like, when I got to Tampa, it was like, man, this is why these guys are successful with the payroll that they have and the way they do things, is because they'll tell you the things that even you don't want to hear. They told me the following year that I was with them, they called somebody else. I had played in the big leagues with them in 15 and 16. I was back with them in the minor leagues. I was like doing really good, and they called somebody else up. And I was like, what's that about? And they said, we don't think your defense is up to par. Like, plain. And as much as I was like, you got to be kidding me, they told you the truth. And I think that was one thing where, why I think they were so good is because, like you said, they tell you, hey, this is what you do. This is what you do really well. And this is what we're going to use you for and how we're going to use you. So be prepared. And so you went in every day and understanding or knowing what was expected of you, and not just one person, everybody involved, because they had those like honest conversations. So then everybody was able to actually like relax and be like, okay, we know what's going on. We're going to go and enjoy our time. It's not like, why am I not in the lineup today? What happened? Why am I not playing against this guy when I hit him good? Like, there's none of that junk. It's like, all right, we're all know what's going on. We're ready to rock.
Yeah, that's huge, because it takes all of the kind of like thinking and wondering, like, am I doing the right thing? Because you've already been given your guidelines and parameters, and if you're meeting the standards or not, which is helpful and helps you like either get better or makes you more comfortable in the fact that, like, I know I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing. I'm in a good spot with the team.
Yeah, and this, one bad egg in a clubhouse, and in football there's a lot more guys, right? The one thing you can't quantify is what goes on between the years and how somebody can help a team in the clubhouse culture, or just, he might be a C player but an A+ makeup guy. I'd take him a million times over the guy that's a A player and a D makeup guy. It just states.
I wanted to shift just the conversation a sec here, if you're okay with Asante, and just go towards, so JP, you mentioned, Asante, you mentioned communication and transparency were the really important pieces that were kind of instilled in those programs that really were successful. And so now, JP, you're a color commentator for the Miami Marlins, right?
Mm-hmm.
Just curious, now looking at, once your playing career was coming to an end, what was the communication like on what's next? What's my next chapter? What are the resources that you have available to you? What type of communication was there from anyone in your organizations or in your circle that was going to be able to help you get to the next stage?
I mean, not a ton. I think that was like a big thing, is for me, when I could have still played. I really walked away from the game because I was hard on myself, and I dealt with anxiety and panic attacks and stuff like that. And I just got to a point where I was like, you know what? I don't want to keep the hamster wheel spinning, and I can do something else in life, and I know I can be successful other places. And so I walked away from the game when I was 32, and with offers to continue to play. But when I did it, I kind of stepped away and I was like, all right, I'm just going to take it all in. I took a year off, and then, you start trying to figure out what's next. And I think the Players Association, there's a MLB Alumni Association, which you can reach out to and help. And I think it's gotten better to, like, they have an app and they have like different Zooms and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, with men mostly, how many of us reach out when we need help or when we need direction? And my conversations really were with nobody in baseball. They were with my business manager and, with friends of mine or guys that that business people that I had met or just people in the world that were older with experience that I knew that I was like, hey, what do you think that I could be next for me? And I had people talk to me about the media stuff and stuff like that. And so those things kind of started happening. But I mean, I didn't, it's not like when you get done, like there's like a person there like, hey, listen, it'll be okay. There is life after this.
Yeah, it's incredible that you had an opportunity you made the choice to like do something else. I mean, I know a lot of athletes don't have that luxury. The loss of identity is huge. Did you go through a bit of depression early on, and then how did you kind of work your way through it?
Oh, I was on the struggle bus. You know what? So what I said, the reason why I said what I said earlier too about the idle mind was good that I never had time to stop was because if I had any kind of issues personally, I internalized everything and just kept on playing. And I think when it stops, there's no distraction anymore. It's just you versus you. And anybody who's been in that situation, anybody who has dealt with that knows that it is a scary, scary place to be. Because it's like all those things that you kind of just put aside, all those things that you never dealt with, all those things that, you were able to kind of hide away. Now it's like when you don't have anything to distract yourself, now it like comes to the top. And I think that's where my struggles were. And, I eventually, and really the pandemic is where it kind of all happened for me. That's where really all kind of the wheels fell off. The first year when I got done playing, I didn't have much direction. I felt like I slept a ton, all that stuff. I got super heavy. And so I think that it was a kind of a depression that I was kind of dealing with, but I never really, I didn't really think about it because then I was at the time was married and I was still doing other things. So I was still kind of busy. I think, I was divorced and then sitting there by myself during the pandemic. That's when I got to like a dark place where I was like, this ain't good. I need help. And I think that's when I started learning about things like, man, all my whole life I've been in a clubhouse with 25 people. And then all of a sudden it's like, you have nobody around you and you have no one with you. And it was like really tough to assimilate with normal life because it's like, you're so used to having all these people around you and it's like a pack and then all of a sudden it's gone. And then you're fighting here with yourself and you have no one really around you in a sense. You might have some friends or whatever, and I think that's when, the negative thoughts in your head that pop up that you're like, why is that coming into my head? Like that's not where I want to be. And that's when I finally really started getting help and like realizing like, man, now is the time that I have to do it because it made me for the first time in my life slow down and sit in a home by myself. And it just took me over the edge. It took me over the top.
I'm sitting here just in complete appreciation, JP, for you sharing that piece of it, which we know can be very difficult. It's not something that we talk about this stuff on every day, our day-to-day pieces. But for us, what's so important, why we love doing this podcast, is because it's allowing the ones that were really, really successful, the ones that kids and high school and college kids are looking up to, and seeing that you're in a place now as a color commentator, a professional athlete for 10 years, and yet recognizing no matter who you are, no matter what success you had, there are these time periods, whether it's expected or unexpected, that's going to have these uninvited internal experiences that's going to kind of put you on your butt. And for you to just kind of normalize and put that out there, I can't thank you enough for it. And also recognize you probably did a lot of hard work to get to a place where you are now. And so, my question with that is, was there a moment or an experience that you had during that kind of COVID period where you're like, you know what, the times now to reach out, the times now to do this? Was there a person or an experience that you could share that may give other people hope, or maybe saying, hey, look out for these type of things or do this?
Yeah, I mean, it was pretty evident when I was like, I have guns in my house. I could take my life if I wanted to. And I think, those are things where it's kind of crazy, because that scared the lights out of me, because I was like, you know what? I don't want to, take my own life. I did not. I enjoyed, the sun coming up and things like that. But I was like, man, I'm starting to get all these like really dark thoughts in my head, and it's not really where I want to be. And so much so that I was like scared to stay at my house with myself. I wasn't staying with my sister and the kids, my nieces and nephews, because I was like, man, I didn't trust myself being by myself. And it's like, I'm a happy-go-lucky guy, all these different things. And it was like, that's where, for me, I realized like, okay, this isn't good. But then I think through the work that I did, I also realized that we all have like weird thoughts. We all have like thoughts that, we all have thoughts that literally have no meaning to them. And I learned to normalize like those things, because it's like, again, it's like when you're sitting and you're driving a car and you're like, man, I can turn into this traffic. You're like, what the heck? And all of a sudden you freak out about it. Or you're sitting at the edge of a rock and you're like, man, I can jump off, and you freak out. It's like, we all have these crazy thoughts. And I always talk to guys too, when I try to talk to like players and young guys, I always tell them a story where I was walking the dog with my fiance, and our dog went to the bathroom. And this is a weird story, but it's the truth. I was like, I have the bag, take the bag, and there's a mailbox right there. And I was like, man, I should throw this in that person's mailbox. And I literally was like, oh, I would never do that. But the thought in my mind popped up, and I was like, and I use that as an example of like, man, we have so many little things that pop in our head. And I think the more that we realize, and I think the best word to use is normalize. I wish that I did more work. I always tell this too to the young players, is as much as I hit in the cage, as much as I worked out, I didn't really dive into the mental strength part. And not just on the field, like life, like actually like understanding, how our brain works, and like the little things about it, and to realize that you're not crazy, you're not alone, you're not we all have these issues, we all have these things that pop up. I think could have helped me, as opposed to like stop me in my tracks and be like, oh my God, I don't want to kill myself, but why did I just have that thought?
So much power there. There's an adage that like we have like 60,000 to 70,000 thoughts a day. We can't imagine all of them to be truthful, positive, and productive. And there, for some reason, our mind shoots out all these different irrational things. It's just, how do we want to interpret them? And do we think there's any meaning to them? And often there's not. It's just how we kind of randomize and go through our day. And so I really appreciate how you're looking at them, and to share it to those that are listening.
Yeah, like once again, like thank you for sharing. It's really powerful about the story. Like you wanted to like stay with your sister, because like I had a time where I didn't want to go out onto the balcony, and you mentioned the work you did to help you get through that. For me, the work was like I got into like journaling, meditation, and like practicing daily gratitude. Like what was it for you that helped you kind of be more in the present moment and just like appreciate everything?
Well, one, I'll be honest. I take Zoloft, and I think that some people will use medication, some people won't. I think that's something that has helped me be able to kind of understand that I have an obsessive way of thinking. So if like I get stuck on a thought, obviously I just like, and that allowed me to kind of dilute it a little bit, like allow as they say, that the river is flowing and the leaf is your thought, just let it keep on going. Well, there was a huge rock on my dang river, and that leaf was just like right in front of me the whole time. So that and really just for me, the therapy that I did, I went from doing therapy twice a week, sometimes 3 if I needed it, to then once a week. And then there'd be times where I needed it again twice a week. And then, it was a constant back and forth until it really, helped me be able to see the little things that I was always so hard on myself about, or that I thought something was wrong with me, and all these things. And then I realized more and more that there's nothing wrong with me. I'm just like anybody else. We just don't talk about all the things that we all go through. And then we realize like we're not alone, and we normalize it, which then allows you to kind of get to a better place. I say, and this, when people ask me like, hey, what would your superpower be? And a lot of people say like to fly or whatever, it'd be to live in the present, because I think that is the toughest thing to do. It is the hardest thing to do, and what's the constant daily battle to figure out how to do it as much as possible, because it's inevitable. You're not going to be able to be present all the time. It's just trying to get there. And for me, like you said, I think I tried meditation, which was okay. I wouldn't say that it, wasn't. I've been able to, I've done journaling a little bit. Really, the biggest thing that's helped me is have conversations, and just say exactly where I'm at, and do things like this, and be able to express myself and not feel like, what's wrong with you? Like what? Like, and I think those are the things that really help me the most. Is that is my therapy, is talking to the young guys that are playing. There's a guy that was at Tennessee who was a pitcher, and he walked away from having anxiety, and me and him spoke a lot. And literally, by the way, fate has it, I'm at a playoff game. He's sitting next to me when Tennessee was playing Vanderbilt, and we started talking. And shortly after, he had told me he just started throwing a baseball again, and now he's back to playing at the University of Tennessee. And for me, like, that's what it's about, right? That's what it's about. It's understanding that, if I could just help one person or say something that maybe somebody can understand that they are not alone, and either get help or whatever it may be, that's like the biggest therapy for me that I could possibly have.
Do you think, was therapy like the first step for you towards like this path? Because I know for me, like initially getting into therapy helped me be more comfortable like talking about it with other people. So was it like a similar experience for you?
Absolutely. Therapy was like the first time where I felt like, all right, I can like get stuff off my chest. And I mean, there was a lot of tears. There was a lot of like anxious moments. There was a lot of different things, but it was like more and more those things that I was so scared of, I think became more normalized. Like, oh yeah, that's okay. There's many people that have those thoughts. And I think that's where for me, it was like, therapy helped. And then I thought when I really, in 2015, I was with the Phillies in camp, and I came out about having anxiety. Like I talked about, like, I'd had panic attacks, all that stuff. And there wrote an article about it. And I think one of the things that really helped me was when I did that, there was a ton of people, players, that wrote to me like, dude, I've been dealing with it. How do you deal with it? Like, what did you do? Like, thank you for saying that. And I was like, holy smokes, all these people have dealt with it. And then I think you've seen now, Kevin Love and DeMar DeRozan. And I know there was a Baltimore Ravens guy, and all, more and more people coming out of like, yeah, I deal with anxiety. Yeah, I've dealt with depression. Yeah, Michael Phelps, all these guys. And it's like, for me, that is, the more and more we started, because again, men, we internalize stuff.
Yep.
And more we all get to talk about it, the better I think it all gets.
And sharing your story gives everyone else permission to not hide anymore. And that's, we've talked about, is that can be the true devastating piece, is when we feel like we've got to hide. And as soon as it's out in the open, man, now I have a little bit more freedom to truly do what I want to do. Or that, because I have this experience, it's actually not going to prevent me from truly being who I want to be. It's just a part of experience that will come and go. And, that giving other people permission, what a tremendous gift. And obviously, I think it means a lot when it comes from people that are respected in what they do in their craft and things of that nature.
Yeah, I'm very open about it. Even on the broadcast, I'll talk about, I've dealt with anxiety or whatever, maybe, and I always want to make sure that I throw that out there in case anybody, is ever feeling like they're by themselves or not.
So I have a question then. So where you're at right now as a color commentator, as an analyst for the Miami Marlins. Was that something that you were always thinking in your mind that that's where you'd end up? And the second question to that is, what are some of the things outside of like getting to know and learn yourself helped you through that process from going and switching from, I'm gonna end my baseball career early and then, get to the next stage of life? What are some of the things that you found helpful outside of kind of understanding yourself in therapy?
Well, one is I knew I wanted to stay around the game. I knew that I what are the things that I did well? I think those are things too that I had to look at. And I like to talk. I've always been a person who's been a talker. Okay, so that's that. I love the game. I love helping people. I love teaching people. And I think that kind of helped me kind of go, okay, well, this can be an option. And then I started doing the pre and post game show. And then I was like, man, I really enjoy this. I love teaching the people, why certain things are happening, or, hey, watch this breakdown. And then it turned into me doing the radio, and I loved being able to kind of tell the story of what's going on in the game, and then the broadcast. And I think that's what I really enjoy, is like trying to teach the game of baseball and try to, share what my love is with other people. And when, I always think about it as, if somebody's watching and thinks baseball's boring, I hope that they're like, oh my God, I didn't know that happened. I didn't know that that's cool. And like having new appreciation for it. So I think I did a little bit of like trying to understand my strengths. I thought about coaching, and then I was like, do I want to sacrifice so much of my time like I have when I was a player? I don't know. And so, I think that the constant battle is always, I think that a lot of athletes, at least for myself, is always like, you're always wanting to strive to be greater. So you're like, okay, you get somewhere, you're like, okay, what else can I do? And what else can I do? And I think, networking was one thing that I've always been good at, and making sure that you connect. And that would be like a huge thing for me to tell people, is make as many connections as you can in your career, because when it's all done, you're going to have at least people that you can ask questions or have conversations with, whatever, that have been through it and have not been through what we have, but they're going to be able to kind of say, hey, maybe this could work out for you, maybe that. And, I thought about being a financial advisor, and I was like, no, maybe that's not it. And it's okay that things don't work out. And I think that's the other thing too, is be okay with failure. Like, you're going to try something, it's not going to work out. Okay. Doesn't mean you're a loser or this or that. It just means one door closed. Let's go to the next door and try to see where I can kind of assimilate with my strengths in life.
That's a great message of like, when you're making that transition, not everything is going to work out. Cause I definitely struggled with that early as well. What would be something you would share with an athlete who is just now retiring? What message would you share with them?
My message would be that it's going to be okay. I mean, I think that you have to be able to sit back and go, man, what an opportunity that I had. And just understand that if there's anything that happens from here on out, or whatever, that you feel like you're less than, or that you're lost or whatever, understand that everybody goes through that, and that's okay. Like, it's okay to not be okay. There's going to be very uncertain times and certain things, and hopefully there's not. Hopefully there's smooth transitions, but like anything, right? It's I think the one line I always like to say is like, there's always, you always have to have some kind of, I guess the best way to put it is wind to your face to move up, right? Airplanes have friction coming at them. They take off into the wind, and that's what helps them. So they have some kind of adversity coming towards them to get going. And I think it's not being scared of the adversity. It's not being scared of the tough times. It's leaning into it, because I think that's where, when you lean into it, that's when you're able to move and climb up and take off, or however you want to do it. But I think again, and it's like anything, is there's bumps, right? You might be taking off and all of a sudden you hit an air pocket and it drops a little bit, and then there's nothing wrong with that. It's like, okay, keep on going. And there's always, as many as times that I thought that there was like, man, this is not good, or how am I ever going to live again? How am I ever going to move out of my sister's house that I've been staying in for a little bit? Am I going to be stuck? And then all of a sudden, you know, I've been able to do some things. So as dark as it may seem, there's always something ahead that can come about it. So just to keep on going.
You learn, basically said, how am I going to befriend stress and befriend adversity rather than run away from it? I think it's an awesome message. I have one golden nugget that you shared prior to, so this idea of those that are retiring, what can they do? Love that one. But there's something else you shared, JP, that I just wanted to kind of emphasize, which you said, don't wait until you're about to retire to start preparing for your next steps. Build those connections. Just start meeting people and making connections and networking while you're playing is a huge part of starting the process. And I think that's for me a huge golden nugget, to be able to, those that are right now in the middle of their career or just starting, recognize the transition is a process. It doesn't start when that one stage ends. And I think that probably proved to be really successful for you, as you being a really social person, that throughout your entire going through each club, my guess is that people gravitated towards you, and that was way of you networking to then rely or lean on those when the next steps came.
Yeah, it's funny. I didn't even realize it, but I tell all the young guys with the Marlins, we've gone to sponsorship events, and I'm like, hey, do all of these. Because as much as you think that, I don't want to have to do this or whatever, it's like, dude, go and meet the higher ups of Bacardi, go and meet the higher ups of this company or that company, because you just never know how any of those contacts can help. So just make sure you go to all those events that you're privy to, and make sure you do all those things, because again, they can be something that could be fruitful for you, later on.
That's awesome. JP, thank you so much for sitting down with us and sharing your story. It's been awesome talking to you, man.
I very much appreciate it.
Of course. Well, there's been another episode of Beneath the Armor. I have to thank our special guest, JP Arencibia. I've been Asante Cleveland. Got Trevor Cody, and you guys have a good one.